Hello, Namaste. Welcome to Dave's Hammer Show. This is the flagship weekly television shows of Indigenous television. In this weekly television show, I try to bring the voices of Indigenous peoples from across the globe, and I try to connect the successes and struggles with one another. In this television show, sometimes I conduct face-to-face interview with the Indigenous activists or like-minded people who are working in the sector of Indigenous peoples, and sometimes I conduct online conferences and discuss on various contemporary issues that are affecting Indigenous peoples. But today, I am going to produce a special program about the official launch of International Year of Indigenous Languages, the global campaign declared by United Nations. Basically, the International Year of Indigenous Languages, which is year-long celebrations for the protections and promotion of Indigenous languages throughout the globe. In the world, it is estimated that over 7,000 languages are being spoken. Almost 40% languages have already been disappeared or died. So, in order to address this alarming rate of extinction of the languages, the UN itself has declared this year, 2019, as a year of International Year of Indigenous Languages. So, in this episodes, I have basically covered the official launch of this global campaign, basically organized in the UNESCO headquarters in Paris on 28th January. Let's have a look at this official launching of the program. The International Year of Indigenous Languages 2019, a global campaign declared by the United Nations, was launched officially, organizing special programs on 28th January at the UNESCO headquarters in Paris and on February 1st at the United Nations headquarters in New York. UNESCO is the lead organization of UN for coordinating this year-long celebration. The International Year of Indigenous Languages is being commemorated throughout the year under the slogan Indigenous Languages Matter for Sustainable Development, Peace Building and Reconciliation. Based on the recommendations of the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, the special body under ECOSOC to oversee Indigenous Peoples issues, the UN General Assembly had proclaimed the year 2019 as the International Year of Indigenous Languages in 2016. Addressing the formal launching program of International Year at UNESCO headquarter in Paris, General Director of UNESCO, Audrey Azoulay, said this International Year will help Indigenous peoples contribute to strengthening culture, language, and access to multilingual media.
UNESCO carries out this work in all the areas covered by its mandate. The International Year of Indigenous Languages that we are launching today must be seized as an opportunity to further work and lay the foundation for concrete action that will continue in the years to come, not only this year. First, in the area of education. For nearly 2 decades, we've encouraged multilingual education by producing teachers' guides, launching scholarship programs for Indigenous students, and assisting member states in developing inclusive language policies. Last year, thanks to the UNESCO Malala Fund for Girls' Right to Education, we instigated the establishment of 2 centers for the education of adolescent girls and young Indigenous women in Guatemala. On the 21st of February, on the occasion of the International Mother Language Day, we will launch our new multilingual education kit to encourage the establishment of inclusive education system. In the area of science, our work focuses on 2 complementary lines of action: to ensure that everyone can benefit from indigenous knowledge, and vice versa, that indigenous peoples have access in their language to knowledge from elsewhere in the world. We will renew our global call for scientific contribution concerning indigenous language, continuing to build on the local and indigenous knowledge systems links, a program which aims to integrate into universal knowledge the know-how developed by indigenous people on climate, on the environment, on medicine. It's particularly useful in combating the loss of biodiversity and fighting climate change. And in this endeavor, many World Heritage Sites, biosphere reserves, UNESCO geoparks are very valuable resources as they are home to indigenous communities that are actively involved in sustainable land management where they live. And we're very proud to work with these communities to protect these invaluable places. UNESCO has also established a number of university chairs in Argentina, Canada, the United States of America, and Nicaragua, dedicated to indigenous issues. This International Year will also provide an opportunity to strengthen our efforts with regard to culture, information, and communication in connection with these matters. We must go further in the promotion of multilingualism in the media and online content to enable indigenous people to strengthen also their digital skills. This is the aim of the work we have conducted in 10 countries of Southern and Eastern Africa, by providing media training to community radio stations, for instance. But these commitments must be furthered. Among initiatives, we're also launching this year a hackathon for information and machine translation in indigenous languages. And since 1996, we've been publishing the Atlas of the World's Language in Danger, which is an essential tool for monitoring the state of languages. Nearly 10 years ago, this valuable information was made available online, and for the International Year of Indigenous Language, we conducted a new global survey on the state of the world languages. And next December, this year, we will launch the new World Atlas of Languages digital platform. In 2019, we will also be shining a light on the issues concerning particularly indigenous people and indigenous languages at our major events, such as the World Heritage Committee and the Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage. And also our network of regional offices from Bangkok to Lima to Mexico City, regional and national offices of UNESCO around the world will be helping to organize events throughout the year. Señoras y señores,
Indigenous peoples make up at least 5,000 distinct peoples with population of 310 470 to 500 million living in 90 different countries. Out of 7,000 languages spoken in the world, majority, almost 90% languages belong to indigenous peoples, of which some 2,680, about 40% languages are in the verge of extinction. Shockingly, one language is becoming extinct in every 2 weeks. Ultimately, as many as 50 to 90% of the languages are likely to disappear by the end of the century, unless any measures are taken to access to and promotion of indigenous languages. Speaking at the program, President of the Sami Parliament of Norway and co-chair of the Steering Committee for the organizing of International Year of Indigenous Languages, Aili Keskitalo, said that she has hope that this international year will help increase indigenous languages' international visibility and recognition.
My hope is that this year will help enhance the visibility and recognition of indigenous languages the world over. Sami poet.
The celebration of International Year will help promote and protect indigenous languages and improve the lives of those who speak them. Speaking at the launching program, co-chair of the Steering Committee for International Year of Indigenous Languages, Akaile Cho, Grand Chief Edward John from Canada also said, not just a year, UN is also planning to launch International Decade of Indigenous Languages, which will together contribute to achieving the objectives set out in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Sustainable Development Goals to be achieved by 2030.
Should support a third decade, a decade of focus on indigenous languages following the International Year. I think that's important, but also an important platform through UNESCO, an indigenous platform on indigenous peoples' languages that would carry from year to year the important work that is so important.
During the event, a young musician from Anishinaabe Nation of Canada, Kitigan Zivi, also performed at the ceremony.
Turtle Island in Nojaba, Ashij, Kitigan Zibi, Kaye, Taganak. Miguachonje, Kibija Yeg, Oma Nungum. I just wanted to tell you there's a lot of history between your ancestors and mine, but I also want to tell you that we are still here today. I was asked to come do song and prayer. Please rise and remove your hats. Ya Nashpan Questa Banya Hea Kineta Kasagina Neo Hayoe Hea This song was written by Steve Awadi. Migochwiada Kajimanedo Kakanake Go Kagi Jendang. Migoch Kajimanedo on Jeaki. Migoch on Je Kakanake Go Netaugin. Mijashkin. Weagaje Kaya Metagog. Kakinamashkiki Kaya Mijim. Migoch on Je Kakana Wesizag Kabmo Dejek Kaneoga Dejek. Kabmeso Je Kaya Kamadigejek. Mishkiki Wajek Kaya Majmeljek. Miigwachonje nabi kaye kakana kai tonwan shishing. Miigwachonje Nesewen Kamijan Kajimino Pamadzian. Miigwachonje Shkode Kamijan Kajimino Abajatoyan. Miigwachonje Yukije Kaye Kaknaete Kijgong. Kizis to be Kizis Kaye Nangashag. Miigwachonje Namashomsag, Nagokamasag, Kakinani Dodemag. We do Kawishan Kajinabakayan. We do Kawiaka Jajek Shwe Nim Nebujek. Kedamaka Jajek Kaye Wawisanajig. Miigwachonje Nebumadzuin, Mia Kachimigech.
Speaking at the launching ceremony, United Nations Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, Victoria Taulikarpus, also said not only International Year followed by International Decades of Indigenous Languages will together help strengthen Indigenous languages and encourage stakeholders to take urgent actions to preserve, revitalize, and promote Indigenous languages around the world.
When we were negotiating the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, we ensured that language rights are included, and these are reflected in Articles 12, 13, and 14 and 16 of the Declaration. Basically, it's really to affirm that Indigenous peoples have the right to use, develop, revitalize, and transmit to future generations their languages, philosophies, literature, among others. And I think that this is the basis for all the work that we are doing related to the promotion and protection and revitalization of Indigenous languages. Secondly, I'd like to say that this issue has been dealt with by the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, and not as a separate right, but as a link to the right to self-determination of Indigenous peoples, and of course to the rights to their lands, territories, and resources. So I'd like to stress that, because that is really how we look at the interconnectivity of all the rights in the Declaration. And finally, I would just like to share with you the view and discussions between the three mechanisms of the UN, my mandate, the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, and the established by the General Assembly, and secondly, that the UNESCO establishes a platform for Indigenous peoples and languages in their program. So these are just a few of the forward thinking that we are planning, and I hope that we will get the support of the member states in the work and in the implementation of the action plan.
With the view to disseminate information about UN's events, UNESCO also has approved Indigenous Television, Nepal's first and only Indigenous community television, as an official media partner throughout the year. There are 125 ethnic and caste groups in Nepal, speaking over 123 different languages. Almost 90% languages belong to Indigenous peoples. Of all 123 different languages, some 37 languages being spoken by Indigenous peoples are in the verge of extinction. There has hardly been conducted any scientific study on the status of Indigenous languages and how they have been used in practices. In this situation, the celebration of Indigenous Year of Indigenous Languages will help policymakers get attention of those languages which are in the verge of extinction.